It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Laugh.
We had a little fun, because it's a very long day, you know.
And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
All right, let's go already.
And John Nash.
Pucker up, Buttercup.
With a focus on career, the consumer culture, and marketing from an LGBT point of view. We're all business, except when we're not.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. Sporting red today.
Red
today.
Because we both were wearing blue all the time.
I have to change it up. I got some new shirts I'm going to wear soon.
Okay.
They might vibrate the camera because they're lines. You know,
Don't do that.
You have to be really careful. Hey, go to focusgroupradio.com to learn all about us, including every platform we're on. And if you're tuning in today on the live show right now via Facebook or YouTube, welcome. Feel free to call us and join the conversation at 877-962-6846. Tim, I'd like to kick off the show. Today, by the way, is going to be two interesting shop talk topics. One is on interviewing techniques, and the other one I really liked a lot. I didn't think I'd like the article, but I ended up liking a lot, the personal branding.
Whether you should have a personal brand or not.
So, over the weekend, I read a totally random article on a website called Lifehacker. And the article was written by this guy, and it was steps you could take in the new year to de-stress your life. And the first thing he did, and I did it myself, and I want to report on it, is he went and he turned off the percentage symbols on his iPad and his iPhone. You know, next to the battery,
Right.
We'll say 20%, 16. He turned that off. He said, you don't need the percent. It drives you crazy. Because you see that number, you're like, oh, no, I'm at 30. Or, oh, no, I'm at 80. Maybe I'll top it off and get to 100. So he just said, turn off the percent. Watch the symbol. When it gets to red, plug it in. I've tried it for, I guess it's a couple days now. And I have to tell you something. It's a weird thing, but I'm like,
Why would you be stressed over the percentage number? Well, let me take that back. You were scared to death when we were in the Volkswagen e-Golf, and I was putting the windows down and up and the radio on.
turning the air conditioner to max.
Going
then
over the
turning it
Golden Gate
off.
Bridge
Yeah.
to suck the energy out of the car. You kept leaning over. What if we get stuck? What if we run
I was hoping we'd hit a hill, so if you went down the hill, the brakes would regenerate the battery.
I don't pay attention to any. You pay attention to all those.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Well, the percentage thing you would think is a really helpful thing, but all right, so let's say you're someone that talks a lot on your phone. You know, the talking on the phone uses a lot more power than just listening to music or web browsing. So I know people who walk around with like a battery, like one of those portable things they plug their phone in to charge halfway through the day, whatever. So you'd be obsessed with that number, but I just thought it was fascinating. I thought I'll kick off the show by mentioning this weird little turn off the percentage thing. And I did it on my iPad, I did it on the phone, and I actually like it because I don't have to, I don't even look at the corner anymore because I used to always instinctively look at the percentage.
You got too much going on in that head. No wonder why. Poor Bob. You've got a lot going on in that mind that you don't need to have going through there.
You say a prayer for Bob every day.
Well, that's like that sort of thing to me would not even
cross your mind.
Was there another life hacker thing I could use?
Back up your computer.
Well, that is a good one.
And in fact, that was the other article I read about a woman who used to work at the Genius Bar at Apple, and she said if she had to describe her experience in 3 words, the 3 words were lots of tears.
Yeah.
Because people bring in their devices that need to be fixed, and then the person will say, "Did you back up your computer?" And the customer would say, "No," or "Yes, I have." Like, and then the person would say, "How long ago was it? A year or whatever?" So,
well, see, I need to do that. But you were down and you helped me reboot and rebuild my system. But I haven't backed it up, and I need to figure out how to back it up. I had all those.
The little drives.
Yeah.
You know, they're so cheap. I think I might, and I don't mean to. And you're good at it, but you know what each drive is. You said that drive is the drive that was.
I want to back up the computer, and when I get in there, I get scared, like a lot of Luddites do, about I'm going to lose something or I'm going to delete or erase everything. I just want to back it up. But there was something within Apple you said not to bother with.
Time Machine.
You said,
It's Time Machine's a built-in.
I don't like it.
I don't use it. I do something different. For any listener who cares, I use something called Carbon Copy Cloner. So once a week, I make an exact mirror copy of the hard drive, and I do it twice. I do it upstate, so there's an offsite copy, and I do it in the city. So I'm only 4 days out of sync with anything. But I've lost hard drives. And
No, but can I do this time capsule again?
The time machine works fine.
What do? Hit the button?
Literally, you'll plug in a new drive, and it will say, "Would you like to use this as your backup drive?" And you say yes, and you're done.
Oh, okay. So do I need a new drive?
We do need to get you. I think we should, because the drives you had, you were really good about. You knew it was on every drive.
Yeah, well, I was upset about the music.
And I think we found most of it.
There's a couple things that still.
All right. So but you knew you had 3 or 4 drives, and one of them, what was it, the passport book or something? That goes back like.
But it had the music, and it had a lot of music that back in the day, during the first generation iPods, you could share music. And I remember you and your old business partner, Greg, would just share it easily.
So, I'll think about that with you. I'll take care of that. And maybe what we should do is try plugging in your old passport thing. But I remember the connection was something I didn't have a wire for when I was down. So
that's
we'll look
typical
into
of this tech stuff. Hey, guess whose birthday it is today? Not that it's a business birthday, but if in our old format back in the day when we used to do a bunch of birthdays. And so this birthday came up, and the only reason why I find it, I'm not as crazy as a lot of LGBT, particularly gay men, I will just say, about her. It's Betty White's birthday today. She's 96.
96. Oh, my God.
So I was on the game show network, or Buzzer, which is an old
By the
game
way, I
show.
found Buzzer.
Great.
Love Buzzer.
Oh, my gosh. Watch some of the old What's My Lines and I've Got a Secret or whatever, but they have all the old match games on. And so I was watching it, and they were going through, and as I'm watching, I'm like, well, Gene Rayburn is dead. Brett Summers is dead. Charles Nelson Riley, Richard Dawson, Ethel Merman.
Literally naming.
Had everybody, and Betty White, and the person at the top, I think, was, I forget who it was, but I looked him up. He was a sports guy. Famous in the 70s, but he was dead. So I thought, I wonder if you're Betty White and you're watching, not that she's turning on Buzzer, but I thought, I wonder if you sit there, it's like, she's the only one alive on that. Because a lot of those shows, it's like when I watch I Love Lucy, I often think about the fact that most of those people are dead.
I didn't think about that. So let's say you sat her down and you showed her one of her, a match game.
Match game, or it could be
she's sitting next to
any
Charles Nelson Riley or whatever it was.
Richard Dawson.
Richard Dawson was. Yeah, she sat right next to Dawson. Do you think she would actually remember individual days? Like, I remember the taping of this one, or there was something going on backstage, or
Because they would tape 3, I think, in the morning, either 2 or 3, have a pretty heavy-duty alcohol-fueled lunch.
And then do.
So they always said if you ever watched the Friday shows when it ran in actual time before syndication, that you could tell the Friday shows because it was their 5th show of the day, and they're
lit.
plowed.
They're lit.
A couple martinis in, and they were having a good time with it. So we
have Don calling.
Hey, Don.
Hi. Couple of things. Number one, if you're going to do a time machine drive, get one that is 4 times larger than the total capacity of your system's hard drives. That way, you will have multiple backups stored from the point you started to current day. So if you ever lose anything in that chronology, you can always go back to it. I use it in 2 different locations.
So explain that again. So buy a hard drive.
So if you have a 1 terabyte, let's say you have 1 terabyte of storage on your computer, buy a 4 terabyte time machine drive.
Okay.
I use a 64 terabyte RAID to back my systems up.
Whoa, that's heavy duty, Don. That is super heavy duty. But anyway,
I've got a couple of Word docs and an Annie Lennox album. Is about what I don't want to lose.
But if you keep the time machine and then you do 1 secondary backup, you'll never have any problems.
Wow.
He's right.
I do one online and I do 1 physical on site.
Cool.
Who was talking about watching the percentage bar on the battery?
That's me, Don. I read this thing about how if you turn off the percentage, but you just look at the icon, your life will be a little less stressful.
Well, just remember that the more you discharge the battery and recharge it, the longer it will last. The greater it's decreased and recharged, the longer the life of the lithium ion.
Oh, so you're basically saying let it go into the red, plug it in, charge it up. I read one other thing that was interesting to me, and someone said, a tech guy said, when you're charging your devices, don't plug them in overnight. Do it during the day, and when it hits 100, unplug it.
Right.
Because it's fully charged, and it's battery health or something. So
Yes.
let it fully almost wind down. I do that on my laptop now and then. Sometimes I'll just let it run out and then plug it.
I was
in.
going to say, so what happens, Don? I feel like you're the Apple genius. So I have my iMac MacBook in through a Thunderbolt display.
Right.
But it's plugged in all the time, so it's always at 100%. Are you saying I should unplug it?
Oh, from time to time, I would.
Well, yeah, what happens is, and what we were just talking about is that the battery does what's called a zero fault recharge. So it goes down to 99.99% and then it recharges, and it goes back down to 99.9% and recharges. And every recharge cycle degrades the lithium ion. So the more discharge, the greater. And I learned this from the guy who's working on the lithium ion propulsion system for advanced Mars probes. And they have to completely discharge their battery systems and recharge them to keep the integrity of the life cycle.
Wow, that is very. I knew that there was some battery memory as well. And lithium ion was
Yes.
better. What was Don? What was our previous batteries? What were they again?
Well, they were standard chemical.
It was like
Alkaline.
nickel hydride or yeah.
Yeah, nickel hydride, which were those make really good booms when they go.
See, I read something else though, where someone said, and it was one of these things, and it could have been one of the fake news sites, obviously, but it said something about, that's an old wives' tale about not charging your phone. That anytime you think you have the ability to charge it, you should charge it, even if it's at 80%.
No, I agree with Don. I've heard that too.
Yeah,
I've
okay,
heard,
because I've heard what you've said before, but then I read this other thing where it said, that's just a fallacy. So. But
Yeah,
you're the rocket scientist, not us.
No, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I'm about to have lunch with two of them.
but I live near him.
You're closer than we are to one.
So Don,
Yeah,
stay.
I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That is such a great reference to an ad campaign. Thank you for that. Stay tuned. One of my caught my eyes is in our honor, so you'll know what I mean when you get to that point. But thanks for your call, Don.
Thanks, guys. Have a great show.
Take care.
Thank you. Well, on that note, then let's. What caught your eye, Mr.
What
Bennett?
caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So this one for me, another thing you and I didn't come up with, although this might have been too labor intensive. So have you heard of something called GoPuff?
No.
Now, so I saw this thing, and so the headline said, GoPuff, the on-demand delivery company, is expanding to 2 more millennial-rich areas, and this was in the Philadelphia paper in Ardmore and PA. So I'm thinking, GoPuff, it must be a delivery of marijuana to the house.
All right, face value, just reading the name, it's not a hard conclusion to draw, right?
So it
GoPuff,
caught
right?
my eye, so I read it. I was totally wrong.
It's not
Although
fake
maybe in the
news.
future they will deliver marijuana. But it's a startup founded by 2 Drexel students, so Drexel University in the Philadelphia area. I'll say their names once and not say them again. Yakir Gola and Raphael Ishlaev.
Nicely done.
So they're both 24 years old, and they're at Drexel University, which is in downtown Philadelphia. Big engineering school, also one of the finer universities in the Philly area, if not the country. And they were having a party last year, and what they realized was that they spent way too much time going out to gather stuff to get things ready for the party. So the exact thing was, we had a party going on at our townhouse, and we realized we took too many trips to the store to pull it off. So the next time we skipped the shindig, and we spent all night drafting up a mock-up app on the back of our Intro to Business notes. 3 months later, they were delivering late-night snacks from the back of their Plymouth Voyager around campus with the hashtag swag. So they started this delivery service. It's essentially a convenience store that's 24/7 and guarantees delivery within 30 minutes, or in most cases between 15 and 20 minutes, 24/7. So essentially, if you wanted to go in Philadelphia, Wawa's are popular, or other places, Royal Farms, Cumberland Farms, those sort of things. So if it's 2 o'clock at night and you say, I want M&Ms and I want a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream and some Twizzlers and a bottle of Colt 45, they'll have it there. And for only $1.95 they charge. And if you spend over $50 or $49, it's free.
So where's the puff come in?
I don't know where the name came from, but so they said Ardmore and Bethlehem. The smart thing they did, and Urban Outfitters did this. Urban Outfitters was founded by a bunch of kids at University of Pennsylvania, and they bought old clothes and fixed them up and started selling them back to college kids, so old Levi jeans and stuff. And Urban Outfitters' model over the years, particularly in the 80s, was to go to what I call B and C level cities, but they're really university towns. Yeah. So that's where they opened. So that's what these guys have done. They're in 26 different markets. And how they look at it, how they find a market, they said that they want to make sure that there's a big university nearby. It's they call it an aggression model, a high enrollment of students, a average amount of snowfall, I guess because you're cooped in, you don't want to go out. And then they want to batch markets together that are close geographically. So currently they're in places like Pittsburgh, State College, PA, Atlanta, Austin, Boston, Bloomington, Indiana, Champaign, Illinois, Chicago, Denver, Newark, Delaware. They've got over 3,000 products, including things like pet collars, batteries, toothpaste, potato chips. I put a link on, if you're watching through Facebook, I put a link in the deck to just pull up Munchies, and it's called chocolate sex or something is the category. But
John did it.
So there's all the
Thank you,
stuff
John.
there you can pull. So if you wanted to get something, it's free. The app is free. But I thought of trying it. I thought it'd be fun to try. Because it's different than Amazon, obviously, but it's it's essentially a convenience store on wheels. They said they call it an on-demand convenience delivery service app. They deliver snacks, drinks, ice cream, house stuff, party stuff, smoke stuff, booze stuff.
Let's say
Toilet paper.
Sudafed?
They have a return policy, so it's the delivery on demand. If you can return something on if it's immediately
John
there.
is scrolling on. We're watching John scroll, if you're listening to us on the podcast, through row after row of snacks.
And if
Cheetos,
something is
kettle
broken
chips.
that you've done through the e-commerce, you have 15 days to return it for a full refund. But have you guys, so in the booth we've got John and Garrett and Allie. Have you guys heard of this GoPuff?
No, but their Wikipedia says they started as a hookah delivery service.
Oh, well, see, that wasn't in the Philadelphia Business Journal.
Yeah.
So that's where Puff came from. That's hilarious.
Garrett is so on this research.
I'm glad you did that, Garrett, because I just thought, what does GoPuff mean? I thought I said
a hookah delivery.
An on-demand hookah delivery service. I need one right now, instantly.
I need a hookah.
But wouldn't it be fun? I don't know if they're in the New York area, but it'd be funny when we start the show to let's go on and let's get Twizzlers and a Ben and
then
Jerry's
during the show they
deliver it. But
Do you think it would work in a city area like this? Because you could just walk across the street to a deli, maybe in like a town.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I don't know,
it's
but
too convenient here.
it says
Dwayne Reed's right around the corner.
You can put the zip code in and see if they do it. There's a
okay,
place to put your zip code in, but. Mostly what it sounds like is if you came in from the bars or you're partying at night, it's 2 a.m. and all of a sudden you have the munchies and say, God, I would love some cookie dough ice cream.
Yeah.
Or I want some M&Ms or something or a bottle of booze. Shows up at your door. You don't have to go out if it's snowing or raining. Did you check the?
Yeah,
don't.
Doesn't work here.
Not Manhattan.
No, well, there you go.
Yet.
Not yet.
New York is a city, the entire island is designed for convenience, so the GoPuff model might not be, I think that's really...
That's what caught my eye. I just thought it was
Thank you to Garrett for digging
ingenious.
deeper and getting that name
Yeah.
figured out.
Yeah, that didn't show up on the business journals.
Tim, I want a 4-hose hookah, whatever they call
I've
this.
never done the hookah. Have you done the hookah?
No, I've never done it either.
Boys done the hookah? Girls?
Once.
Garrett,
I don't like it.
Is there anything you haven't done, Garrett?
Crack.
Oh, well, that's good.
Meth? What do you
No,
say?
meth and crack. Yeah, I've never
I've
done
done
those.
crack. I used to work with a woman years ago in one of my first jobs, and she once said that she was the one that's, she was talking about, I don't know how crack came up, but she said, don't you ever go near that crack. She goes, because once is all it takes, and that scares you.
Well, you saw Whitney Houston.
Well, it's dangerous, yeah.
Poor thing.
Well, I have two caught my eyes, and one is in honor of Tim because I'm often jealous of the caught my eyes that Tim brings to us. They're quirky, they're funny. I love them, and mine's a little nerdy science. But then I found this. I thought this is right up your alley.
Oh, perfect.
So the headline read, "Pittsburgh Potties are a real and very mysterious thing." And so basically, here, I'll just read the intro paragraph. It's easier. Ever wandered down into someone's basement and seen a fully functional toilet in the middle of the room, just sitting there, Pittsburgh Potties are just that. Common commodes installed in your average unfinished business without walls or doors, and so named because of their prevalence in western Pennsylvania. Why, you might be asking, is this an actual thing in the area? I'm glad you're curious. So here's some pictures we put up, and look, I was born in Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. My cousin's house had a toilet in the basement. I could never figure out why. It was just in the middle of the room.
And a lot of friends, before you go on, that I know in the Philadelphia area, particularly in the suburbs, same sort of thing. And I never quite understood. In the unfinished basements, there's a toilet like that.
Just sitting there.
Yeah. So what's the deal?
So it says one theory is that they were put in homes built after World War II for steel and mine workers coming home from work. After a long, dirty day, these guys would enter through a basement door, clean up, and do their business down below before heading upstairs, and therefore avoid messing up the house proper. Given Pittsburgh's industrial roots, this makes a lot of sense. Of course, the author wonders, if you're going to put a toilet downstairs, why not a sink and a shower? Or why not just
you take off your dirty clothes, I guess, for the laundry, right?
Dump them by the thing.
Do a dump and go upstairs and shower?
Send the kids out of the basement for
But you're right. Why not have a stand-up shower down there?
Send the kiddies out and then drop the kiddies off at the pool, and whatever. And then the author says, regardless of origin, today these toilets are mostly just creepy old relics. And I couldn't agree more.
My friends, I still use his.
He claims that...
I go to his house, I use the toilet downstairs.
Just sitting out in the
It's
middle.
easier to go down there. I've been doing it for years.
Well, he says that some people love that obviously family members probably like it. The author of the piece also said, I read somewhere that the younger generation sometimes calls these Pittsburgh potties the party toilet. And it's a vessel for them to vomit if they get sick in. They're not using it for
Easy cleanup.
Easy cleanup. The author also, he and his wife moved out to Missouri, and they found their version of a Pittsburgh potty in the upstairs of a second floor of a finished garage. In the middle of the room, there was a finished toilet just sitting there, all plumbed up, ready to use. They removed it, and they laugh about it to this day. So that was the first one, and the second.
I will tell you this potty thing. I will tell you when I was in Ohio.
You didn't have Pittsburgh potties in it.
Well, there was a weirder thing. So in one of the sorority houses, and I understand around town, this was another thing as well, and the girls would get very kind of creeped out about it. They would have two toilets next to each other, just sitting there in the room. Nothing
side
else.
by side.
So once, and usually the only ones who left, the girls come back from downtown, half in the bag, they both plop on the toilet and talk about how the night's events went and do their business. But I would see these toilets like that, and I was like, who is ever both sitting on... And there's no divider, no nothing. They're just two toilets like you would have two chairs. This was in the Chi Omega sorority house at Marietta College. I understand the toilets are still there. Everybody checks when they go back.
I know Chi Omega. Am I thinking of the Oh, I know the Chi Omega. Okay.
But anyway, I often wonder about who decide you're going to put in two toilets like that?
I remember in the dorm, my freshman year of college, two of our floor mates took the stall doors off, two of the sit-downs, and they just didn't want to be bothered opening. They call it the express stall.
Yeah, we had no doors on ours. I hated it.
Express stalls. And
I found a place to go in the bathroom in the Fine Arts building.
And then the RA comes in, and he's like, we're not so sure you should be taking this stuff off. And everybody voted on it, and we put the doors back on, except for one. And then they took the seat off that bowl to make an express.
That's an
a urinal.
That's a good idea.
That was a good compromise.
Yeah.
Now, the other caught my eye is definitely for our friend Don down in Alabama, who called earlier about some good battery advice and backup. And this came to us from our producer, Matt, by the way. He knew this would catch my eye. And the headline reads, Remembering the Astronaut Who Smuggled a Sandwich into Space. So John Young, one of NASA's longest flying astronauts, died at the beginning of the year at the age of 87. I think he died on January 1st, actually. Longest serving astronaut, spent 835 hours in space and walked on the moon. That's pretty cool. Back when he was in I want to say it's the Gemini program, he smuggled let's see.
Peanut butter and jelly? Looks
It's
like
a corned beef sandwich.
Ugh.
Is that right? Yeah.
That doesn't last 10 minutes.
So they
on a trip to space.
That one it's a reproduction. Well, it's a
Corned
sandwich.
beef sandwich preserved in resin memorializes the infamous sandwich incident during the Gemini
flight with
3 flight.
With Gus Grissom. Yeah. So he puts it in his pocket. He gets to orbit.
Concealed it in his spacesuit.
Suit, yeah. And so
Imagine what it stunk like.
Well, okay, so there's an audio recording of the Gemini thing, and in space, Gus Grissom says, "What is it?" And John Young says, a corned beef sandwich, and Grissom goes, "Where did that come from?" And Young goes, "I brought it with me. Let's see how it tastes. Smells, doesn't it?" And Grissom goes, "Yes, it's breaking up. I'm going to stick it in my pocket." And then Grissom goes, "Yep." Something Young says, "Not a very good idea." Grissom goes, "Pretty good though, if it would just hold together." And then Young says, "Want some chicken legs?" So apparently it broke up in the capsule. They stuffed it in their pockets. They get back to Earth. Nothing happened, but typical of our Congress, right? According to Young's biography, John Young, the astronaut, a couple of congressmen became upset when they heard about this, thinking that by smuggling in the sandwich and eating part of it, Gus and I had ignored the actual space food that we were supposed to be testing on the flight, costing the country millions of dollars. The House Appropriations Committee convened. Yeah, this is our right. Let's convene to talk about a corned beef sandwich that went to orbit in a Gemini capsule. So he was reprimanded, but nothing else happened. And incidentally, he became one of the most prominent astronauts in terms of astronaut safety and stuff. But apparently, where the sandwich came from, and this made me laugh, the Cocoa Beach Deli. You know who used to live in Cocoa Beach?
No.
You watched I Dream of Jeannie, right?
Yeah.
That's
Is that where they were?
They live in Cocoa Beach. Yeah.
The Air Force. Yeah.
The deli was called Wolfie's, has since closed, but they immortalized the sandwich in a block of resin. So that was for
There's a lot of things I would bring. I'm not so sure I'd bring a corned beef sandwich. I mean, it must have stunk.
I could think of like a toy or
A bag of Twizzlers.
simple. It's not going to break up, right? Or Tootsie Roll. Yeah, anything like that. But apparently they opened it up and it just started.
It's got all that coleslaw and junk.
Yeah.
If it was a Reuben.
He said, though, he regretted smuggling the sandwich because it came up all the time. Every meeting he was in, they would laugh about the sandwich. Gus Grissom, though, said it was one of the highlights of that particular flight. So there you go, folks.
Business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So aside from Betty White, there was actually a ton of birthdays today, more than I would ever possibly imagine. Michelle Obama, Betty White. There was
It's all springtime babies.
Yeah, these
are all people that were conceived in the spring.
Was that the deal?
And yeah, winter's waning. Hey, we're trapped snowstorm 9 months later. You got.
But as I had to dig to find the business birthday, born January 17th, 1892, was James J.D. Zellerbach. Do you know him?
No, but the name. Go ahead.
So he's an American businessman and ambassador. He was a prominent industrialist and former United States ambassador to Italy. He was chairman of the board of the Crown Zellerbach Corporation, which was one of the nation's largest paper companies. So Crown Zellerbach was a big pulp and paper conglomerate. It was based in San Francisco. The Zellerbachs moved out there from Philadelphia.
Now, you look at his picture.
Yeah.
If this were Hollywood and someone were casting, and the casting agent said, "Now, we need a guy to say the following, show me your papers."
Zellerbach.
Anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
They were Jewish, too.
Okay.
So I'm sure they're German.
You said Italian, right?
He was the ambassador to Italy.
Italy, okay.
Italy. So he, for a special reason. So, but the Crown, so I was reading about Crown Zellerbach. They eventually, in 1985, were bought by Georgia Pacific and sold to James River, but still in existence, other Georgia Pacific. But the company invented, and I thought this was fascinating, paper towels, cardboard egg cartons, and the window envelope.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait. Really?
So they invented the window envelope specifically for the San Francisco-based Pacific Gas and Electric Company as a way for them not to have to make labels and just, because when you think about how simple it is, right? So, but they invented the
paper towel?
the folding paper towel.
So the ones that fold into each other, so every time you pull it out.
So they would stay in a stack. The egg carton, which I thought was interesting, cardboard egg cartons, and the window envelope paper towels. So he was sworn in as U.S. ambassador to Italy in 1957, specifically to help with administering and continued, because of the work he did administering the Marshall Plan after World War II.
Okay.
So what the United States did, and we know the Marshall Plan was helping to rebuild Europe, and we had placed people around Europe to help, and we used a lot of captains of business to do it. He was one of them. And he spent a lot of time in Italy and started learning about wine.
Okay.
And so after he was an ambassador to Italy, he said he was inspired in Rome, and he wanted to come back to the United States and produce the best wine and anything he thought that could rival Europe, he thought would be a great thing. So he bought land in Sonoma County, California. He was one of the first to actually farm it in a mass capacity, and started a winery, which I've never heard of, called Hanzel, named after his wife. Her name was Hannah, and their last name Zellerbach. So he started this winery called Hanzel, and they also had a number of things that they've done. They were the very first in the world to create a temperature-controlled stainless steel fermenter. They first controlled the malolactic fermentation. They also did cloning of rootstocks. And they said they continue to be innovative to this day. They were also they're the oldest and continuously producing Chardonnay vineyard in all of North America, the oldest Pinot Noir vineyard in all of North America. And at the time, the entire state of California had fewer than 200 acres that grew Chardonnay until he bought and started planting the Chardonnay vines. So
Very cool.
yeah, so he did that. He said he was also the first to do the Wente clone of Chardonnay, which is a famous wine. He died on August 3rd, 1963, of a brain tumor. But I thought, what a
Did it
career.
say how old he was? Was he?
He was 71.
71. Was this your favorite of the ones you were finding? Because you said there was a lot of business birthdays.
And I always try to find, and we've been doing these for 10 years.
You've never done.
So there were people
You've done
we've
before.
done before. So I always try to dig a little deeper. And this guy we had not done before. I'd never heard of him. But what a career. I mean, he Marshall Plan, the
Ambassador
folding,
to Italy,
the paper company that did all that great stuff, and then
just take the egg
starting the
carton.
wine business in Sonoma. So
And that stainless steel fermentation, all the wineries talk about how they do that now. To know that he was the one
he was the
that
one
actually
who
started that. Very cool business birthday.
Happy birthday, James Zellerbach.
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 All right. I like that birthday, and I like paper towels, and I like egg cartons.
And the paper and the window.
Then the window envelope. Hey, friends, Deep Discount has been a partner of ours here on the Focus Group for over a year now, and we are thrilled to be working with them. Go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo. Arr, that's my shark sound, even though it's a pirate. It's like a tick I do. And
sharks went after pirates, didn't they?
Sharks certainly went after pirates. They went after, they'll go after anybody, actually. And start shopping. And we want to let you know about a couple of sales and new releases that are going on. And I was really fascinated by this one, 4K Ultra HD sale. So I don't know if you've been shopping for...
I had to ask you what that was because I never heard of it.
We're going to school you on that. So Deep Discount in the Focus Group, we're going to teach you about 4K today. So most of our television sets, the big flat panels, are something called 1080p. And by the way, John, feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong.
You're doing great, John.
And that means not that the numbers, that 1080 is actually the vertical amount of pixels. The width is actually 1920, 1920 pixels wide. A 4K TV is exactly 4,000 pixels wide. So technically, a 4K TV is more than double the resolution.
Sharper image.
Yeah, and the more pixels means the more color, means the sharper the image. And if you like Blu-ray, I love Blu-ray. On a normal 1080p TV, I feel it's cinematic. 4K is like going to the movies because the amount of data that are on these discs is phenomenal. So go to Deep Discount, check out the 4K Ultra HD sale. It's a great way to start a 4K collection, and I think you should pick your favorite films. And in that spirit,
I picked one, which, rare for me to find a film I like. I picked Argo.
Love Argo.
Which was there, which
Argo's
I happened
a good
to see.
movie.
And if you haven't seen Argo, it really, and particularly the administration, you might want to send a copy down to the White House. It's the importance of allies, friends, and diplomacy, really. And it's about, we all remember the Iran hostage crisis in 1979. And this movie is about how the CIA went undercover saying they were going to shoot a science fiction film in Iran. And they went in as Canadians, I believe. And there were Americans in there hiding at the Canadian embassy after our embassy was stormed. and the CIA made this deal where they sent these producers in pretending there's big
movie, sci-fi. It was a sci-fi movie.
and approved all the way up to Jimmy Carter. And the Americans were hiding out in the Canadian embassy. They were given passports and changed their identity. And there's a scene at the end when they're at the airport on trying to get out. And we all know how it ends, but you're not so sure you know how it ends. And that's when you know a movie's good. I'm like, oh my God, the Iranians are going to get them. It was sit on the edge of your seat, creepy. In a good way.
Super well said,
Argo,
by the way.
Argo was
you know, that's
one of my favorites.
The thing about the end of Argo, you're 100% right. We know the ending. And yet I was like...
When I watched and I thought, oh, it's not going to end as it's supposed to?
Uh-huh.
But that was kind of the talk about great movie making. So it's Ben Affleck, Alan Arkin, who's great, John Goodman's in it as well, Bryan Cranston. So pick that up if you get a chance.
In 4K.
And, in 4K at deep discount.
Now,
what did you pick, Mr.
Well, I picked one because of you that I think would be really great in 4K. It would certainly showcase the technology and the discs. Planet Earth 2.
Oh, those are great.
This is the BBC series, and this time on this series of the Planet Earth, they've managed to put cameras on some of the animals, and
like a GoPro.
Yeah, like a GoPro, an animal GoPro. So all the footage is taken from the stories and the journeys of the very animals that they were shooting in the previous one. I think it would be a really interesting take on
those are all shot beautifully, so in 4K they must be magnificent.
It'd probably be like, you stand there and become hypnotized by and then the other one I picked simply because I think that it's one of those movies, it's a Baz Luhrmann film. Baz Luhrmann gave us Strictly Ballroom, Moulin Rouge, and I put down here The Great Gatsby on 4K or Ultra HD. We all know the story. We all read it in high school. And this particular movie by Baz Luhrmann starred Leonardo DiCaprio. Beautiful, beautiful, colorful, total Baz Luhrmann. And if you buy a 4K TV, kind of like when you buy a stereo, you put on Grace Jones, Slave to the Rhythm, ding, and the bell rings. You put on one of these films.
Well, they're almost like circus color, and I don't mean that disparaging.
I know exactly what you mean.
Moulin Rouge, all this. They're just visually, it's just
practically a carnival.
Stunning.
It's like it grabs your attention. And this week, I was waiting for this for a while.
Is this a new release?
This is a new release.
I'm going to go to bed.
So remember, deep discount. You get there by going to focusgroupradio.com. New release this week is Blade Runner 2049. I am so happy this is out. I'm one of the...
Was it ever in?
You make it. You actually...
John took me to the original Blade Runner for $1 movie.
Watertown.
And I should have known better back in 1970 whenever
fell asleep.
81, 80.
You fell asleep.
You've loved it ever since.
The movie ended and you're like, what happened? I'm like, how do you explain Blade Runner to someone?
It was wet and orangey. And a little like Dune.
All right. So anyway... John, I think I put one or two still images in for Blade Runner 2049.
Wet, dark and orangey?
Ryan Gosling stars as K, Officer K. Harrison Ford returns as Deckard. That is a hologram that Ryan Gosling interacts with. It's an advertisement, actually, for an artificial intelligence called Joy. I think the movie is really stunning. I saw it twice. The second time with my mom. My mom was transfixed.
Your mother went?
She loved it. She loved the first Blade Runner.
I think she's just being nice to you.
This is a movie, by the way, that...
There we go. Orange and wet and dark.
John and Garrett are laughing. If you're a fan of Blade Runner or really good science fiction and well-told movies, I thought the movie was very thought-provoking about identity, about, who's a human, who's not. I thought it was really well done. And artistically, every frame in that movie is almost like a painting. My mom even said the same thing to me. She goes, the composition is beautiful. It's going to sparkle on Blu-ray. If it's available on 4K, my God, I would hop on it if you had a 4K player. But so, Blade Runner 2049, new release. I'm very excited about that.
So be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com, please, and click on the deep discount logo and order away because we get credit when you guys get there through our site. So again, it's focusgroupradio.com. Click on the deep discount logo. There's the 4K sale going on. There's also some other sales there as well as you'll scroll through, and there's some really great prices on all kinds of merchandise, including DVDs, movies, music, etc. Right, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got our shop talk coming up, and the first one we're going to discuss is called 5 Things You Definitely Should Not Do in Your Job Search. I disagreed with a couple, but we'll see. So these are 5 things you definitely should not do in your job search in 2018. John and I will discuss that when we come right back. Stay with us.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
He's got a big fat ass.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Find us here every Wednesday live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're time shifting us, of course, you can watch on both those platforms anytime you like. We have our entire library at our YouTube channel page. And audio is, of course, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio. In fact, some of our listeners found us on iHeart.
On the iHeart.
On the iHeart. So Tim found both our shop talks. I like them both, and I think and I agree with you. By the way,
Can I ask you how much you weigh before we get into the shop talk?
Yeah,
you and I were talking about that during break.
Yeah, we were
the heaviest person on earth now is only 239 pounds. That's what I've decided.
Is that the president?
Never be above 239. It's like a woman's never older than 39.
Because 1 pound more than 239 means he's obese. Yeah. How much do I weigh?
Well, because
I probably weigh right now 193.
Okay, so Trump is only 30 pounds more than you.
A couple inches taller too. He's tall, right?
And he's only 10. He's 10 pounds. I'm heavier than Trump. I don't think I'm in a 48 waist pant.
You know, it would have been better if that doctor he had during the campaign wrote a letter about the healthiest man on the planet. I mean, we might as well. At this point, we might as well just go all in on Fantasy Island.
I don't think he's 239, but we'll see. Maybe Huckabee is.
Someone wants to pay him $100,000 to get on a scale.
Yeah, I saw that.
There's a director in Hollywood says, "I'll pay you $100,000 to your charity of choice if you stand on a scale." You know, if you're not worried about that, you would take up that challenge. You would donate $100,000 to like a charity of your choice. We know that's not going to happen.
All right, I sidetracked you.
I'm not sure that was a sidetrack. That was a legitimate. If you're going to get up in front of the country, and we're all like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
All right, so Tim found a great article called 5 Things You Definitely Shouldn't Do During Your Job Search in 2018. So if you're going to be looking to move to a new position, find a job, if you've been in the market for a while, there's a couple things this article claims that you should not do in 2018. The note that I put down before we get into this is some of this stuff is any year. Doesn't matter if it's 2018, if it's 2049.
I think this was just for the whole, it's a new year.
New year, you're new you. So number 1.
So the first one is the one that I had a problem with it. It said, allude to your age. It said, don't give anyone a reason to doubt your skills. Don't list positions you've had for a long time and leave off your graduation dates. Age discrimination does exist, and you at least want to get your foot into the door for the interview so they can see how awesome you are. And for me, if you don't put the dates, it's a red flag. But I understand if your 30-year career, you don't need to go into the first 2 jobs. Maybe you head out of college, you were there for 9 months or 2 years or something. But they say don't put your graduation date on the resume, and don't list years you may have been in jobs for a long time. And I know in my years of recruiting and even my time in corporate America, when I saw a resume like that, I immediately thought, okay, this person
They're hiding something.
is hiding something. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'm in your boat on this one. I'm totally in your camp. I would say a long time ago, I was told to ignore the year of graduation. Within 7 or 8 years of leaving school, unless you're pursuing a higher degree, master's or a MBA of some sort, it's irrelevant. You got your BA. It doesn't matter what someone said. You are matriculated. And on the resume front, with the dates worked at a company, I actually think it works to your benefit. If I looked down and I saw 3 jobs and you were consistently at a company for 6 or 8 years at a clip,
you're not a job hopper.
No, and you clearly were getting something out of the professional experience. You were probably a good contributor to the team, and maybe you're sitting in front of me now because you've kind of hit your stop point at that job in terms of growth and learning. I thought, I'm with you.
I think as you talk through that, though, I think the compromise here would be, yes, if you're 10 years out of college, you probably don't need to put the date down that you got your BA or BS. But on the job thing, the other way you can simply find out how old somebody is just by their names. No
Oh
one
my
names their
God.
kids Tim and John anymore.
That was
only in the
so
60s.
60s. Yeah, that's a good
Or Jennifer.
point.
Now
That's
it's
a really good point.
Madison and Justin and da 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 da.
And of course, nowadays we could
Liam.
just Google things and stuff pops up all the time.
So what was number 2?
This says things you should not do in 2018 is you should not fail to be your own champion. This one I was kind of unsure about because there's a difference between being your own champion and being comfortable with yourself and your skill set
Right.
versus screaming at the top of the world how good you are. This one related more though to an emotional state that some of us get into. If you're not getting interviews, if things aren't going a certain way, you say to yourself, maybe I'm not good enough for the job. And
Be more confident.
Yeah. Did you take that away from that as
Yeah,
well?
that's what I looked at that one as. Number 3, I thought was important. It says, don't be too narrow in your job search, meaning a lot of people will just look at a title
Yeah.
and say, okay, it's not for me or it's a stretch. And I remember 2 quick examples. When I was going to get my very first job, Walden Books in Southbury, Connecticut, had a job for a manager of the bookstore, and it was in the
Now,
newspaper.
you're going for your first job, right?
16 years old.
Okay.
But I was looking for a job. My mother said, you can apply for this job. I said, Mom, I can't be manager of a bookstore.
You're too young. Well, you would think
She
that.
said, but they're going to need people to stock books and sell books.
Okay.
So she said, write them a letter telling them you want to save money for college. And I did, and they called me in. I was the only guy, because it was a bunch of women that sent stuff in, and they needed a guy to work late.
Close the store up.
Close the store, take the
Do the
deposits in,
register.
do the
take the
register.
depo- yeah.
So it worked out great, but I would have never myself, or a lot of people probably would not have applied for a job because they were looking for a manager, which they did find a manager. But, and the other example was when I was working in the steel company, the district manager title there was the highest title at the company.
District manager.
District manager.
Okay.
Whereas that same level of title at Subaru, for instance, would be a regional vice president.
Yeah.
So again, if you're just going to say, oh, I'm not going to apply to that because of the title, you need to be certain.
Well, she
certain
says that in the
companies have
article.
different levels of what they call something, right?
The article says while you may identify with a specific title, each employer can have a different title for the same job duties. So each it's like silos. Each silo defines district manager different than.
Because I was, oh, you're district manager. But at the steel company, that was a big deal. But at a place like Subaru, it was a sales job.
I will say that, and to anybody, to everybody that's listening who may be experiencing the job market or finding something new, it is frustrating.
Yes.
Because the way the sites work, everything is very
Well, the keyword search.
keywords and what is the title and what's your skill set, and then you read the requirements that people put up for jobs, and sometimes I'm like, okay, so I didn't work as a fission technician at a nuclear power plant, but I do know how to make a cup of coffee. It's like crazy stuff.
Well, they overwrite the job description.
I think there's a lot
I had
over.
interviewed for one, and it sounded like it was a senior level job. And the moron, obviously, was a temp HR person, puts me through 90 minutes of a phone interview, and then tells me the job was paying $35,000.
A 90-minute interview.
And she's going on, and I said, "Did you look at my background? I had 15 years in the auto business." I said, "What?" I said, "And the way this is written, this was written as a promotions and sponsorship, lead at the company. Idiots."
Well, and that's why we know this is a landmine thing. The next one is one that I put a big star. We've talked about this a lot. It's something that we talk about all the time. Don't fail to do your homework, or if you fail to do your homework, you're going to walk in and you're not going to know the company you're speaking to. And in fact, the flip side of this is they recommend that if you go into a company and you know what they're about, be prepared to and let your curiosity come to the surface. Ask questions. What do you do? How do you handle this problem? But know the company and the industry you're talking about.
Know how to pronounce the names of their products.
That's a big one.
Yeah, no, just simple
big
basic
one.
stuff. And I always hate that part of an interview process, though, where you have to manufacture questions to ask. I always felt if you had a good interview with somebody, your questions would be
Conversation.
answered in the conversation. But everybody would always say, "Oh no, you need to have questions set." And sometimes I would feel like it was just they were just doing it to do it. And after you interview 4 or 5 people in a day, I was like, you know what? I don't need. How do you like working here?
Let me ask you something. I'm curious because I think I've talked with you about this before, and maybe we've talked about it on doing this kind of segment before. Did you often know within seconds that the person was going to be
Like
Yeah, okay.
the air cushion interviews. The minute somebody walks in,
Good or bad? I mean,
yeah,
yes or
because
no?
before the air came out of the cushion, you made a decision. We all do that.
Yeah, we do. We do.
If somebody walks in and somebody sits down, you know right away whether this is going to be good or bad, just by whatever. We don't know. What's the word? It's subliminal, I guess.
Well, it's a hidden bias. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but we all do it all the time. I like blue. If I see someone wearing a blue shirt, oh, you might like it better. When we were down at Out and Equal in October, I think we talked to a number of people about this as well, and that's why corporations have multiple interviews with multiple people, because you might instantly like somebody, the next person might be,
I've never changed my mind. I've never been convinced to change my mind.
And
I
have
will
people
say that
tried?
I've been the only person to push somebody forward that I insisted that we hire because I was in charge of the department. And even though there would be 4 or 5 of us that would interview, there might be 4 people. There was 2 people I know that came to mind. That's the other people in the department said absolutely not. I said yes. I spent the least amount of time with them. I spent 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm like, yes, we're going to hire him, or yes, we're going to hire her. And they say no. And I will say, to the credit of the managers, after 6 months or so, would come back and say, you were right about so-and-so.
I know
great or she's
exactly.
great.
I know both people you're talking about because we talked about them before, and I remember they ended up being really great assets to the
And
team.
both still doing quite well in their careers. And,
Smart guys.
But I gave them a chance. Had majors not anything to do with the positions
that.
they were going to do, but they were smart people. And I always say, if you hire for attitude, you can teach the other stuff. If you have a very good attitude and you're smart and you're personable. I was a bit, if I was discriminatory about anything, it was the fact that I always felt if somebody went away to school,
yeah,
only because of the types of jobs that I was hiring for. These were
You
people that had to
had to
work
be
on weekends and travel.
solve problems on your
Got
feet.
to figure it out.
Yeah,
Got to be a
gotta figure
problem
it out.
solver.
That was always a funny thing. That was one of your requirements. Was that did you go away far enough distance that you were living there?
Figure it out.
If you were far enough away from home that you couldn't. And back in the day, we talked about this before. It wasn't as easy as it is today. So
My boss at the time said to me when I first started at the company, I don't ever want you to call me on the weekend unless somebody died.
and you had to do that one
And
time.
so I said that to the people I hired. I used the same line. I said, you're somewhere in East Jabip and something's gone wrong or something doesn't happen, figure it out and get it fixed unless somebody dies. And so when the phone did ring, I thought, oh, this is really not
And
good.
it was a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah,
I remember
somebody died.
how horrific
Yeah,
that
it
was
was
because you had to hop on a plane and go out.
Yeah.
It was Colorado you had to go out to or something.
Seattle.
Seattle. It was a rally race,
Yeah,
right?
horrible.
What was our last one here?
The last one was just simply something we talk about all the time. Don't fail to get back in touch after the interview. A thank you. We always said to write a thank you note. I still
Change that.
I still think that's important. But an email's fine. They said a phone call. I was surprised about when I saw that because I'm not so sure you would pick up the phone and call someone in this day and age and thank them. But maybe if somebody said, hey, if you have any questions, call me. They said it's another opportunity though. If you forgot to say something in the interview, or you wanted to clarify something that you wanted to bring out about yourself in the interview about why you were qualified, it was a great opportunity to reinforce that. But the follow-up's important, whether it's an email, phone call, send a handwritten note.
Hugely important. And I'm actually now, because of the speed with which we communicate, I'm actually in the camp that handwritten note is great.
Yeah.
That could be 2 or 3 days before someone gets it. And
They may have made up their mind.
And
by
I do
then.
think that there are really key areas where a handwritten note is probably highly appropriate. So if you're going for a senior management position, they don't make those decisions overnight. You may have a 2 or 3 week interview process where you see 5 or 6 people before, well, 3 to 4 actually, I should put it that way. That is definitely a handwritten note. But if it's going to be a faster process, definitely an email doesn't take you. And watch what you write and your punctuation.
Well, you know what our problem is now with handwritten notes?
People can't read
print them.
You have to print them by hand, yeah. I was just talking to a friend's mother who said that her grandkids at the school they go to are now learning cursive again. Oh. And the PTA, all the parents are like, please teach handwriting again because they start looking at the kids' writing. It's barely legible.
Well, I told you I sent a graduation card to a mutual friend of ours' son. He opened up the card and he just looked at it.
It was to a mom. Says,
Like
hey,
it was
Mom,
written in kanji or something.
read it.
Yeah. I said, what's wrong? He goes, oh, they can't read script. I said, are you kidding me?
So that was that.
That was that one. So that was those were the 5 things. What was the exact title, John?
5 things you definitely should not do during your job search in 2018. Some of them could be any year, but this was 2018.
And now we're going to have a more, after we take a quick break, we're going to have a more esoteric conversation about whether we should have a personal brand or not.
Oh, boy.
Which I think is more philosophical. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Now back to the Focus Group with Tim and John.
Because he has a lot of chutzpah.
An entertaining look at the world of business.
Heads are spinning, heads are spinning.
Listen, laugh, and learn.
I am not gay. I never have been gay.
That's my voice.
Oh, the clown show rolls on. I am not gay. I never have been gay.
Except that one time in the Minneapolis airport when I was having a wide stance.
A gentlemanly stance.
Larry Craig.
Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. If you're joining us live on Facebook and YouTube, by all means, call us at 877-962-6846. And focusgroupradio.com is our website. All the information about our show is there, including how to get it in audio or video form. Okay, Tim alluded to this before going to break. I think you said it was a more philosophical and esoteric essay, but it's called No, You Don't Need a Personal Brand. And I'm glad you picked this because I am so tired of this notion that we're all walking brands. Like, what's your brand? What's your tagline? What's your this?
Well,
what's
the
your that?
salesperson, our last salesperson we had, was aggravated that you and I hadn't done a branding campaign for us. And I was trying to figure that out. Would you and I have had do we have a personal brand? I don't know.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have a style, or we'd have a brand. No, I take that back. I'm gonna reverse myself. I'm not. I'm sure we are a brand, and we do have qualities that one would ascribe to a brand. But I think of a brand as like Procter and Gamble. I think of McDonald's, Apple, IBM, General Electric, and you could actually go and look at each of those companies and say this one stands for well-manufactured appliances, or this one GE's one of their best known things was that Sigma. What was that quality thing?
Six Sigma.
Yeah. So there's a whole thing about that, but the personal brand thing came up about. How many years ago? How long have we been dealing with this personal brand stuff?
Well, it revolved around social media because they said there were so many ways to present yourself now.
Yeah, that's it.
And so they said the fact that everybody needed to show that they were unique or they were different.
Yeah.
And they said this really isn't anything new, right? I mean, I think
my favorite part of the article.
One of the takeaways was that, and of course now I can't find where so one of the biggest takeaways is it can't hurt to make a good impression professionally. That's not it. Where did I had it marked somewhere. You probably have it. But they said it was just a different, here it is.
To that brand, is this the one, branding in decades past was called marketing yourself.
Right.
And it typically included attending classes or lectures on dress, etiquette, public speaking, and other in-person interactions many professionals dealt with. Totally true. When you were at the steel company, you had an entire...
Right. We had 2 weeks of going through the type of briefcase to have, the type of sunglasses to wear,
drinks,
the way to order
lunch.
food, the way to...
Yeah.
But, you and I had gone to... We closed the Liberace Museum in Las Vegas.
We did the last live show from the Liberace.
But one of the
it was a fun show, but they did close it down.
Right, but one of the takeaways from the museum was they talked about Liberace, about how he had helped Elvis and he'd helped a number of performers to say, when you go out on stage, you want the eyes on you. There's a full orchestra, there's other things going on, but you need to go out there and be
bigger than
over
life.
the top, right?
You're a performer.
And so I thought about that his brand, but is that just a physical thing? Or is that him overall? And then I listed a bunch of other people, and I was going to say to you, if I say their names, what would you immediately think? So Dolly Parton. What's she known for?
I think of her for music.
Oh, stop.
Music and comedy.
For her big boobs. John nodding his head. Where the hell are you known for music?
John. Yeah, all right.
Come on, John.
All right, let me ratchet my mind down to last week we were talking.
Isn't she known for her big bosoms?
Yeah, and I think of her.
Everyone needs a shtick.
See, but
what did you think about? Did you boys think about music for Dolly Parton?
I mean, that was the second thing I thought about.
That was the third thing I thought about.
1 and 2 and a motorboat. So,
Oh my God! All right.
Lucy.
Oh, redhead.
Okay. Steve Jobs.
A genius, but I also have. There's a whole list with him. That
Was there one thing that his black turtleneck and jeans?
Oh yeah. Well,
uniform.
Yeah, the Brooks
David Letterman
comedy.
always wore white socks. I mean, there's
Oh, you're
just,
talking about okay.
So
okay.
I'm saying there's
okay.
So there was something
That's
that
a trademark.
Well, but see, that's where I was trying to go with this.
I see.
So, is it a physical thing, or is it something that's different, like, oh, reputation? They're a great person to work with.
I think
Or-
what you're touching upon smartly, and I'm glad you're doing this because I love this kind of stuff, is you said this before. Like one day, I don't know how many years ago it was, you said you need a trademark.
Yeah.
You need to wear some kind of sock all the time, or you have
Like,
to.
I always wear red socks.
Red socks.
Usually.
And
Not today.
And what that is, beyond brand, or it's part of brand, but it's memorable. And every association you listed, Dolly Parton, Steve Jobs, Lucille Ball, David Letterman, there's an association to a particular thing. And you brought up, and Liberace, the rhinestones and the costumes, Steve Jobs, black turtleneck, Brooks sneakers, pair of jeans. Now, when I'm thinking of his trademark and his brand, I'm thinking like, oh, it's
design
and smart and all this other stuff.
Right.
But I really do prefer, now that you've put it this way and you framed it this way, I really do prefer this trademark thing. Someone's known, Richard Simmons.
Right.
Create the hair and the tank top, right?
And the shorts, the
And the
shorter
shorts.
shorts. You know, Lucille Ball was on with Dick Cavett. I was watching it on
YouTube.
No, there's another old channel. You know me, I'm an old.
Wait. What channel is this?
It's like Cozy or something. But
And
they have
it's
Johnny
all-
Carson on. They have Dick Cavett. Might have been decades, but it was Lucille Ball, Carol Burnett, and Lucy's daughter. And Dick Cavett says to her, "You still have red hair."
Yeah.
She's like, "I have to. What am I going to do?"
Yeah.
She's like, "I can't change it." She said, "It's not the color of my hair."
Your
She
trademark.
said, but it was some right. And she said,
her
"I can't.
trademark.
I can't change it." And she goes, "I hate doing it all the time, but that's who I am." And
Jackie Gleason,
Jackie Gleason.
the funny fat guy.
Yep.
In fact, he would say that.
Lost weight, he'd be out of a
be
job.
out of a job. Yeah. And so, how do you reconcile that though with this notion of personal brand?
Well, I have friends, and I was trying to think about this. So I thought to myself, there's certain friends that I have that you always know they're going to be a particular way. John P. Brown, for instance, always going to be in a suit. I've got a friend who wears a suit all the time. I'm sure you have friends that you know they're always going to be blank, whether they are always going to have a cigar in their hand like George Burns, right?
That's
George
another
Burns with a cigar.
classic. Yeah.
But I was trying to figure out, is there something? Because my niece always makes fun of me because I purposely will have red socks on when I see her all the time. She checks.
That's cute, actually. I like that.
But I was trying to think, is there something that we've done or that we would do from a branding standpoint, when you talk about personal brand or show brand, that would be, I think the business birthdays to us is unique, but that's more of a style thing. But if I said about you, you always wore a blue shirt, or you always had, you always wore a hat, or you always wore a scarf. There's a guy in Philly that always wears a scarf, or the people in P-Town with the Hat Sisters.
Hat Sisters. So if I said a name, Richard Gartland.
Why do I know that name?
Because he represented H&R Block 2 years ago.
Oh, the green bow tie.
The green bow tie. That was his thing. Get your billions back, America, whatever, the green bow tie. It's an interesting, and I wonder if you can invent this, or it's just something you start doing over time and it just becomes.
You like watches, for instance.
Love
You always
watches.
have a nice watch on, and it could be eventually, if that became your thing. What watch do you have on today, John? Somebody who always wears a different watch, or what vintage tie are you wearing today?
That's another I have friends who actually love those thin vintage ties, and they're always doing that.
But I immediately thought about this when I thought about people who stand out, and I know Dolly Parton has said it. Cher and Madonna both said it. You know, they fought over the fact that neither had a last name, but they were just known. They were so well known by the fact that it was just Cher or Madonna, and Oprah now, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about that sort of thing, how do you, and Dolly Parton talked about, what did she say? It takes a lot of money to look this cheap. And
brilliant,
right? But
brilliant.
you know, she's never going to not go out without the cleavage and the, you know, you've never seen her without it all, you know, in the big blonde hair and all painted up. And I don't know. I was trying to think about somebody bringing it down to the base level of going to look for a job. I thought, is it more about your reputation, your personal brand? Oh, John Nash is a good guy. He's always done good work. He's very creative, and he's got lots of integrity.
That's I years and years ago, I attended a conference called SIGGRAPH, motion graphic and animation thing out in San Diego, and I sat in on a panel discussion where a recruiter was talking to, and a lot of the people, they were younger than me and they were starting in the industry. She connected personal brand to the invisible resume, your reputation.
Right.
And she said, one of these things you could never change. One of them you can change. Your resume you could change till the cows come home, but your invisible resume, your brand, or or the things people remember you for, which is exactly what you were just talking about, integrity, problem solver, they show up on time, they're great, and whatever that is.
And he loves watches. So that's
it
would start with that.
I get it. Yeah.
Oh, John. Oh, yeah, I know him.
He's the guy that
Smart,
always.
He's this. And Dolly Parton. Oh, the woman with the cleavage. Oh, and she's a great singer. She's that. Or Steve Jobs. Oh, the
one that always wears the turtleneck. Same thing every day. Yeah.
Right. Wears the same thing every day, but boy, is he smart because he spends his time doing tech and creativity with the. I don't know. I'm not sure you and I are there. That's what I was trying to figure out. I made that thought because it does go wrong, and I think that's where you're getting with SIGGRAPH. The other example I remember, and I saw this interview as well. I like the band Heart.
Yeah, we talked about them on a deep.
So Ann and Nancy Wilson were rock and roll girls, but in the '80s they had a new record label, and they decided that's not who they should be.
They changed.
So if you look at videos from the '80s, and they hated it, they were all painted up with eyeshadow, and the hair was done differently, and they were in different clothes.
So
and
that
the
was their
music
label that was doing that?
The label made them do it, and they fought it. They said, no, you're not selling enough albums. You need to be softer. You need to be more feminine, not so hardcore rock and roll girls. And they hated every second of it. They look back on it. They said they laughed. They would never wear makeup like that.
And I doubt it moved the needle too much, right?
No. And it ended up hurting their brand, and they went back.
It wasn't their authentic self.
It wasn't who they were.
Well, the article closed with an interesting thought. The woman who wrote the piece said, you shouldn't be thinking about your personal brand only when you're looking for a job. You should optimally be thinking about it when you're not.
Yep.
So developing your style or this invisible resume kind of idea of how people are thinking about you or talking about you is not something you're doing on the job process or the job search process, but something that is part of your day-to-day stuff. It's fascinating. I like this whole trademark thing. I got to think about this now. I'm gonna
trademark.
I'm gonna latch on to that. Yeah.
Mustache. Who was the guy who always had the little
handlebar thing?
Wasn't he an artist?
Oh, you're talking about Salvador Dali.
Yeah.
I had to think about that.
So hey, that's the focus group. Thank you everybody for watching, and thanks to John, Allie, and Garrett in the booth. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. They've got the 4K sale going on. Go there and pick up some fantastic movies right now.
Blade Runner 2049.
Blade Runner. See, I'm not even going to go down.
Okay.
Pick up Blade Runner 2049. And at Deep Discount is probably the best price you're going to find anywhere online. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo. And thanks to our friends at Volkswagen of America, John and I are starting our 8th year with them this year. And we're happy that they're on board with us because we get to spend time with you guys every week and have lots of fun. So thanks to the folks at VW. Be sure to go to VW.com and check out all the great deals they have going on right now. They've got some really cool winter sales happening. I was just at the VW dealer yesterday because of a pothole, Philadelphia.
Thankfully, you got that fixed, though, right?
But I was talking with some of the sales folks, and there's some great deals going on right now at Volkswagen. So be sure to head to VW.com or your local dealer and pick up one of the new cars they have out there. Stay with us. We'll see you all next week. Don't text. John gave me the look like I did. Don't text and drive. Arrive alive.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.